Hello and welcome. It's time to make dinner, and ingredients I had on hand, I had some ground beef that was in my freezer, but now it's thawed out. And I also had in my fridge, I had some mushrooms, and I cut up some of my fresh pasta sheets into wide noodles. And tonight's dinner is gonna be ground beef stroganoff, and it's gonna be yummy, and let's do it. We're going to start by adding a little bit of roasted garlic oil to a skillet just over medium heat. That should be good. Now we're going to break up our ground beef in this pan. Meow. Okay, and we're going to chop this up and cook it up till it's no longer pink. We're going to season our ground beef with some salt and pepper. That's a good flavor. Mix it in. And when our beef is cooked, we're going to continue on. While our ground beef is cooking, we're going to dice up half of a sweet onion. Which end goes this way? Oh, that fits better. Okay. That's gonna work out good. I gotta go stir the ground beef. Our onions are nicely diced up. Now I gotta go check the ground beef. I think it's time to take it out of the pan. I was right. Our ground beef is nicely crumbled and browned up. I'm gonna leave the heat on because there's another step. But what we're gonna do now is remove this ground beef from the pan, transfer it to a plate. Our ground beef is out, and now in comes our onions. I have lowered the heat a little bit. Cook these till they're translucent. By the way, here's what our ground beef looks like. So we're going to stir these around, like I say, till they're translucent. And then we're going to move on to the next ingredient. The onions are softened up and translucent. Now in comes about a half a pound of mushrooms. These are pre-sliced, but they're huge. But that's okay, we're going to cook them down. I think that'll do. We're going to season our onions and mushrooms with just a little bit of salt and pepper because we're using beef stock, which is salty, so we don't need a whole lot. And we'll incorporate the onions and the mushrooms together and cook them down till the mushrooms are softened and cooked. And that'll take about 10 minutes because look at the size of some of these slices. Huge, enormous. I think I'd like to make these mushrooms smaller. So while they're cooking, I'm gonna divide them up. And that'll work. Our mushrooms and onions are softened up pretty nicely. Now we're gonna add about a couple of cloves of chopped garlic. Maybe a little more. Incorporate that in, and we're going to cook this for another minute, 45 seconds to a minute. Our garlic is very fragrant, and now it's time to return our ground beef to the pan. and mix it up with our onions and mushrooms and garlic. And now it's time to add some all-purpose flour, about a couple of tablespoons. And incorporate that into the meat and vegetables till it's not lumpy and well blended in. Our flour is well incorporated into our meat and veggies. And now it's time for a cup of beef broth. Stir that in. Smelling good and looking good. And now comes a cup of half and half. Keep stirring this around and heat it to a boil and see how thick it gets when it reaches that point. Hope it comes out perfect. While this heats up, it's time to put in a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. I like a lot. And we'll mix that in too. And we're heating up, and we're going to reach our boiling point. I'm going to start heating up our salted water so we can cook our pasta that's going in with our beef stroganoff. We have reached our boil, and we've formed a nice thickness. And we're going to turn off the heat. Let it sit for a minute, and then something else is going in. Our water has reached a boil. And now it's time for our big wide noodles to go in. I may not be using all this pasta, but this is the best pasta, so I'm cooking it all. And if I don't use it all, I'll use it for something else. Our noodles are in, and this will return to a boil any minute now. And we're going to cook them up, and because these are fresh, they don't need to cook that long. I know I've said that before. So let's see how we go. Yep, here comes the bubbles. Boiling up. I'm going to reduce the heat. And now it's time to finish up our beef stroganoff sauce with probably 3/4 to a cup of sour cream. And we will mix that in. Looks and smells so good. It tastes pretty good, but I'm going to add a little more sour cream. About a 1/4 cup. Stir it in, and our pasta is going to be done. We're going to drain it and butter it. And then we'll mix our ingredients together and serve it up. It's going to be such a yummy dinner. Glad we did it. Our noodles are all cooked up, nice and al dente. And now it's time to drain them. I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of butter to the saucepan. I like buttery noodles. Now that our pasta is drained, we are going to add it back into the saucepan with the butter. And mix it around till the butter is melted. And then we're going to add the noodles to our beef stroganoff sauce. Our butter is melted and our pasta is coated. And now we're going to start. Like I said before, I'm not sure I'm going to use all this, but we're going to put some in and incorporate it around and see how much we need. Actually, I'm thinking we might need it all. I flipped. I'm gonna use it all. Because this sauce is pretty darn saucy. And I think it'll work out very nicely with these noodles. Our beef stroganoff and fresh noodles are all incorporated up. And now we're gonna serve it and eat it for dinner. Here's our beef stroganoff in a nice flat bowl. And we're getting ready to serve it. But before I do, because it's beef and because I like it, I'm gonna garnish it with a little bit of tarragon. I wish I had fresh tarragon, but I do not. But it'll give it a little greenness and a little tarragoniness. And then we're gonna taste it up. Here we go, ready to taste. Thank you for joining me while I use some on-hand ingredients to make a yummy dinner. And here it is, beef stroganoff with fresh wide noodles. And now we're gonna give it a taste and eat the rest for dinner. Here we are on a fork. Whoop, falling off the fork. Beef and mushrooms and nice sauce and thick fresh noodles, and in we go. That came out so yummy, and I'm looking forward to having it for dinner. And it reminded me back in the day, one of our regular dinners when I worked at one of the markets that I worked at, every week we had pot roast. And if we ever had any pot roast left over, I turned it into beef stroganoff, and it was very popular. And that's why. It comes out so good, and we'll see you again soon.